Sitting's the way to go. More people are sitting than standing. We're almost there. All right, so it's typically happened when I make announcements of lists, I forget people. But moms always come up to the rescue. So apparently we need to also clap for Dalton Snow, who graduated from junior high, as well as Steve Kohlmeyer. I did mine. Page 16. But not during the summer. All right, so that's good. Hey, I put up a little voting slide because, okay, we're in that kind of season. We just are. Okay, you're thinking presidential election, we can vote for it in November, but I'm going to pull that back a little bit more. I'm actually going to come up with another slide that's going to come up. Here we go. Let's try it. There we go. I found this interesting. So this is a picture, obviously, of President Lincoln. Okay, he was one of the two tallest presidents. He was 6'4". The other one, little trivia, is Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay, they're both 6'4". But what's interesting, if you would just look at this picture and you didn't know that Lincoln was Lincoln, and you said, "Who's the guy in command?" You'd probably say, "The guy that's literally head and shoulders above everybody else." You just do that. Okay. And, as I did a little study here on tall people becoming president. Listen to this. In the 19 U.S. presidential elections between 1888 and 1960, the taller candidate won the popular vote all but once. In the 21 presidential elections from 1904 to 1984, the taller candidate won 80% of the time. I can tell you President Obama is 6'1", but aren't you wondering how tall Mitt Romney is right now? I know you are. Well, I'm not going to go there. I know the answer. But there's something about being tall. I checked it out. It's not just presidents, it's CEOs. 90%, according to Forbes magazine, 90% of all CEOs are of above average height. Very, very interesting to be thinking about that. So why do I tell you that? Because we're not going to be voting for president in November, but in 2 weeks, we're having an associate pastor candidate come. And he's going to be here just for the weekend. He's going to be doing some preaching, some kind of message, some kind of music, going to be question and answer period, everything else. And then 2 weeks later, at our annual meeting, June 29th, we will most likely take a vote on whether we feel God is calling him to come to our church as the new associate pastor. And I'm wondering what criteria we're going to use as a church to figure that out. Now, if he's 6'4", you might be thinking, yeah, he's the one. I can tell you he's not 6'4". But what criteria do we use to evaluate a man who's coming into our church? He's going to be here. This is a significant time for our church. And I was thinking we need to, for the next 2 weeks, kind of prepare to figure this out. Because if we're just judging him on how tall he is, or how he dresses, or how he talks, or something else, I'm wondering if that's the godly, scriptural way to do it. And yet, so often we do things like that. I can remember, early on, and before people really knew who Mitt Romney was, and all of a sudden they saw a picture put on the news like, he looks like a president. He talks like a president. He walks like a president. He dresses like a president. He'll probably be a good president. Nothing to do with his policies or platform, just appearance is what so often we go for. So this morning we're going to go to a section of Scripture that's going to help us out to figure out at least 3 criteria that we can use in 2 weeks when this associate pastor candidate comes to be able to kind of figure out, is this the man of God for us? So we're going to be in 1 Samuel this morning. If you have a Bible, you can turn there. We're going to be doing a couple stories over a couple chapters. It's okay. First thing, if you don't have a Bible, it's okay. A lot of the verses are going to show up on the screen, so you will not be left behind. And as you're turning there, it's going to be 1 Samuel chapter 8. We're going to be in starting around verse 4. And some of you are turning there. Let me just kind of tell you the story. So this is a story that the judges of Israel had been there. They've been judging the nation for hundreds of years. All of a sudden, Samuel shows up, the prophet Samuel. He's really the last judge of Israel. And he's kind of getting old. He's doing a great job, but he's just getting old. And it's like, well, who's going to take over for me? So he has 2 sons. The 2 sons, not really good guys. They're taking bribes on the side. Everybody knows it. They're perverting justice. Everybody knows it. And the whole nation's like, we don't want your 2 sons to be the next judge. This is not going to work at all. And so, what happens? What do these people do? Starting in verse 4, it says that all the elders of Israel gathered together, came to Samuel at Ramah, and said to him, "Behold, you're old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." That didn't go over too well with Samuel or God, but that's what they wanted. We want a king. We want a king like all the other nations, because a lot of those nations have really big, strong kings. And I think that's what we want. Now, I did a little research here. There's a little section in Deuteronomy 3:11. It talks about the king of Bashan. How tall was he? His bed was 13 and a half feet long by 6 feet. It's like the first ultimate king-size bed. That's a really big guy. So you can imagine if you're in Israel and you have like the normal guy and like the other nation has this crazy big king, we want someone just as big as him. It's almost like into this caveman mentality. The bigger the guy, the better he's going to be. And so as I thought about this, now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the other nations, I'm thinking about our associate pastor coming up. Now I think we all know or may know an associate pastor somewhere, whether a church down the road or another state, wherever you came from. And I'm thinking, maybe you're going to judge this like we want an associate pastor that looks and just like the associate pastor I know, like everybody else has. And I'm wondering if that's the correct criteria. Just give us one like everybody else has. They should look like that guy and dress like that guy and be as tall as that guy, and that's what they should look like, because that's what an associate pastor is. But perhaps there's something a little bit deeper that we need to go to, and I believe there is. We're going to just flip a page over to 1 Samuel 9. I'm going to read just a few verses here. Because here comes a king. It says, there was a man of Benjamin, whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bacharath, son of Althea, a Benjaminite. Here we go. A man of wealth. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. He's kind of like the Abraham Lincoln height. It's like you look at him, like from his shoulders up, he's taller than everybody. And you know, as I looked at this list, I'm thinking this really works for U.S. senators, in a sense. Okay? But here we go. Don't we want someone who has wealth? Must mean they know what they're doing, good business. Yet wealth, handsome, it's always a good thing. Young, he'll be around for a while. And he's taller. Well, there's 4 criteria we could use to evaluate someone. That's what the nation of Israel had before them. They didn't ask him what he thought about God. Didn't ask him about his spiritual life. Didn't ask him if he was in prayer often. None of that. Hey, look, here's a guy who's got a lot of money. He's tall, he's young, he's handsome. That's going to be our king. He's really, really cool looking. Let's put him up on the plate. Let's get him right in there. And that's the criteria that they used. Well, how did that work out for him? If you know the story, it's kind of like, it's really sad because he basically burns and crashes. He just does. He goes down in flames. Over 5 chapters, a very short amount of time actually in real life, he has 10 distinct, whether it's errors of judgment, recklessness, selfishness, just paranoia, all these things just get right in there. And he goes down in flames. Yeah, this guy who they thought was even the best ever. Wealthy, strong, big, good-looking guy. Well, why that happen? And it says in 1 Samuel 15, 11, it says this. The word of the Lord came to Samuel, I regret that I have made Saul king, for he has turned back from following me, has not performed my commandments. And Samuel was angry, and he cried to the Lord all night. And that made me think, if we choose the wrong man to be our associate pastor, we're going to get angry. Maybe at each other, maybe at God, maybe at him. And we're going to cry for a long time. And we do not want to fall into that mode. So be very, very careful what criteria we use to evaluate this person that's coming. His name is Brandon. And in here, in 1 Samuel 15:11, there's actually two things that we need to focus on, which I think are very legitimate criteria to kind of do an evaluation on. The first thing he says, he turned back from following me. So apparently if that's the bad thing, following God is the good thing. So what we really need to figure out is this Brandon guy, is he following God? Is he following God? Jesus says this in Matthew 16. He says, then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The sense of following God. We want to make sure that he's doing that. But I don't think it's possible. This is going to, all of a sudden, you're going to see this arrow come right at you in a second here. I don't think it's possible to figure out if he's following God if we are not following God. I mean individually. I mean individually right here. If you're saying, oh, I don't know if he's following God, you can ask him, are you doing this and this? You could say, hey, do you have the passion of God? Do you have your eyes just focused and set on God? Can you just basically hear the heartbeat of God and your heart's beat just at the right in tune with God? Is that how you are? You cannot ask that question legitimately unless it's the same way in your heart. You cannot say to him, are you following God? If you're not. If your passion isn't set on Jesus, if your eyes aren't focused on God, if your heartbeat isn't just in tune, if your steps aren't in his direction day by day, why are you asking him the question? You should be asking yourself the question first. And I have to do a little preemptive here. I actually sent him a letter with the criteria that I put down here, that we're supposed to be evaluating him, and I said, feel the freedom to ask us the same questions. Yeah. Which I'm thinking there's a question and answer time on Saturday. I'm thinking no one's going to want to ask a question. It's going to be, hey, are you following God? I go like, well, I'm trying my best to say, are you? What do you say right there? In that instance, when he would say, well, I'm trying my, how about you? Oh, I haven't read my Bible. I just go to church now and then. I follow him on Sundays. It's not too bad. And it comes back upon us. So we really need to focus in on determining whether individually we're really following after God. If we've, as Jesus said, if we're denying ourselves, putting other things to the side that really don't matter, and we're taking up the cross of Jesus and we're following him. That's the first criteria we need to use to do this evaluation of this guy that's coming. The second one says he's not performed my commandments. Well, that's the bad thing. You have to think this is God's evaluation. Then following the commandments is a good thing. That's what we want to find out. Is Brandon and his wife Julie, who's coming, are they following the commandments of God? Are they in obedience going after what God would desire? And it doesn't say, well, what Jesus says, it says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's John 14:15. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So, as we think about that, I think we would all say, I hope everybody here would say, I love Jesus. I hope so. Then you'll keep my commandments. But note what it doesn't say. Then I'll keep some of your commandments. I'll keep most of your commandments. I'll keep your commandments on Sundays. It's just a flat-out, all-covering kind of thing. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. That's all of them. Everything that's there. And so if we would dare to ask him that question, are you being obedient to the Scriptures? I don't think we can really say that with integrity unless we are being obedient to the Scriptures in all areas of our lives. That's our heart, because he's going to be here. He's actually evaluating us. I hope you realize that. He's evaluating us. It's like, you know what? There's no one that's really following Jesus, and there's few that are really being obedient to the Scriptures. You might say, I need to come here. Okay? But where is it in your own heart? Thank you, Gene. Okay? Where is it in your own heart? Okay? That you're being obedient to the Scriptures. That's the second criteria. And if we're going to ask him that question, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves that question first. Well, the story continues a little bit on, because God is done with Saul. He's looking for a new king. It's going to be David, okay, King David, the guy that takes out Goliath in a little bit. And we're going to go to 1 Samuel 16. Because Samuel's there again. He's got all the brothers of David there. And he's kind of going through saying, well, I wonder which one is God's anointed one here. And he says this in 1 Samuel 16, 5-6. And he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. It's like one more time going on. First they looked at Saul. He was wealthy, young, tall, taller than everybody, whatever, the whole thing going on. Now it's like this guy, something was like, clearly this is him. He never really gave it an interview. Never said, hey, what are your thoughts about God? Have you ever reading the scriptures at all? Where's your heart with God? No. Hey, I'm looking at you. You look really cool. You look like a president. You look like an associate pastor. You look like God's next king for Israel. Just based on appearance. And it's the same mistake that happens again. But what it brings us down to is actually our third criteria. Because it says at the end of that, it says, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. So in a very real sense, God had anointed David, had called David to be the next king of Israel. And we need to kind of discern whether God's favor, his hand, is upon this associate pastor candidate. Is this God's choosing? Because he's chosen, it's pretty easy, like, sure. Who's going to be like, no, I disagree with God? We're not going to say that. We have to figure out what God is leading us towards. And for this one, I'm kind of thinking, don't we need to feel that we've been anointed by God and that his hand is upon us? He's put us in a certain calling, whatever it is. Carpenter, lawyer, it just doesn't matter. He's put us in a certain calling, and you're comfortable with that, your acceptance of that, you're confident where you are, and his hand and his favor is upon you. I think someone in that position, it's very easy to say, oh, look, and the hand of God is upon him, or not. But we need to be able to go there. Because, the very next verse says this. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as a man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And that is really the key to the whole matter, is someone's heart. It's funny, after the first service, someone came up to me and said, all right, so we're not supposed to look on his appearance. You're making a big point out of this. Is this guy just like short, fat, and bald, or what's going on? Does that matter? We're all like catching ourselves right now. We all laughed. Does that matter? Because that's the appearance that I just mentioned. And that's only the appearance. And so we need to be very, very careful in 2 weeks that we don't go in with that exact attitude. Oh, he's like this with it. Listen for his heart. Listen for how God has transformed him. He will tell you a story of salvation, that he did come to the cross, that he understood what Jesus did on that cross at a very young age. And that he knew that Jesus' blood just washed over his sins. And then he came to repentance, he humbled himself, he accepted Jesus into his life, and he's been transformed, and his heart has just been set new. That's where we need to go. That very place of a transformed heart. And I'm going to make the case here, I don't think we should dare to ask him where his heart is if we haven't first at least examined our own hearts. And we have 2 weeks to do that. Next week the sermon's going to be about very much just on our hearts. But we're just kind of introducing that concept this morning in the sense, where is your heart this morning? Is it set on following God? Is it set on being obedient to the scriptures? Is it new and fresh because God's given you that heart? Is it beating at the same pace, in a sense, as God's is? The passion that God has for the world, loving everybody, is that coming out of your heart? And if it's not, we have 2 weeks to figure that out. 2 weeks maybe to go to God, maybe in repentance, just asking forgiveness, asking maybe for God just to cleanse your heart one more time, to change it how He would have it to be, that it would be soft and gentle, not hard, because over time, it can get hard. It just can, and things get in there. So, in a way, I guess I'm asking this morning, how soft is your heart? And is it soft towards God? Is it soft towards others? Because that's where we need to go. You know, I did a Sunday school class about a month or so ago in the high school class, and we were actually using this verse. And I was kind of talking a little bit about the way we dress. We all came to church a certain way. Some are jeans, some are ties, suits, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay? And it was like, well, and I said, well, does it matter what you wear? It's like, no, look, that verse right there. Okay? And then I said, well, isn't that really talking more about your heart than your clothes? Because I think you can come to church in a suit and your heart can be really messed up. You can come to church in a really pretty dress and your heart can be so far from God. But you can also do that in jeans. It doesn't really matter. It has nothing to do with the clothing. And so what I challenged the class on was, you may not have dress-up clothes on today, but did you come with your dress-up heart to church this morning? Is that what you brought to God? Like, I wanted to make my heart as pure as I could. I've confessed my sins. I wanted to just be just pure in your eyes, God. So we have 2 weeks to kind of figure out where we are. Not where He is. That's going to happen in 2 weeks. But we have 2 weeks of time to kind of examine ourselves, go before God in prayer and say, God, I need a reset here or something. I need you to come into my life and just do a wonderful work. Because I want to be all that I can be for you. I want to be a child of God that's in tune with you. We didn't have Joey come up, just kind of get a guitar going. The rest of the team's going to come up as well. Just going to close out here. We're going to be singing a song in just a moment. This is like, you know, it's a word. You're going to sing the song thinking it's not even a prayer, but it is. It's change my heart, oh God. And I wonder this morning if there's some here who need to have their hearts changed. Because maybe you're not satisfied where it is. And you're probably thinking, if that's the case, that God's not really satisfied either. And He's not delighting where that heart is. This is the first Sunday of the month. Typically we have special prayer over here with elders. This morning I'm going to do something a little bit different. If you'd like some special time with God, I'm going to actually, as we're singing this song, you can just come forward. Maybe just kneel on the steps, whatever, pray on the steps. I want you to feel that freedom to be able to do that, to let the Holy Spirit of God just work through you. So I ask you to stand and sing one final song.